Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
The Stock Movers Report, your roundup of companies making moves in the stock market, harnessing the power of Bloomberg data.
Well, let's have a look at some of the stocks on the move today here in Europe. I'm Caroline Hepker with Stephen Carroll, and we're joined by Bloomberg's breaking news editor, Louise Moon. Louise, good morning. Let's begin with Bayer, which makes agricultural products. And the Trump administration seems to have stepped in to back the firm's appeals against US lawsuits that have been targeting for quite some time Bayer's top-selling weed killer.
Indeed, yeah. So shares are surging in Germany on this news. They were up the most in about 2 decades this morning. So as you say, yeah, so a Trump official has urged the US High Court to consider Bayer's appeal to this case. This is thousands of lawsuits that have been going on for years, blaming their weed killer for causing cancer, essentially. So this is the US Solicitor General. So yeah, he's recommended that the High Court agrees to hear Bayer's challenges, which makes a big difference. So if you look at the statistics around it, the Supreme Court now has to decide whether to take the case, and usually they only accept less than 1% of petitions. But with this backing, the probability rises to more than 70%. So it's a big deal. So that's the next thing that's being looked at, that the focus is now moving on what the Supreme Court will decide. But as you say, it's plagued them, for years to come. They've already paid over about $10 billion in verdicts, in settlements. So analysts are saying, obviously, this is a positive indication, and they're looking at, could this potentially mean, if this goes ahead, that there could be lower provision requirements, and so on. So yeah, shares surging on the back of that. So we'll be keeping an eye as to what the Supreme Court actually end up deciding and what happens going forward with the case.
OK, so that on Bayer. To UK banks now. The country's 7 largest lenders have passed the Bank of England stress test. How that's going down on markets?
Going down quite well. Shares are ticking higher into the green across the board. So the likes of Lloyds, HSBC, NatWest, not hugely higher, potentially because they were all expected to pass, but it is still very good news for the bank. So as you say, they passed this stress test. It essentially examines how resilient they are to an economic shock that's worse than the financial crisis. That's what they're examined against. So the results are showing that all of these banks can support the economy, even if conditions are, materially worse than expected. The BOE also said that none need to strengthen their capital positions, and it also cut the estimates of how much the sector needs in capital requirements. That was for the first time in a decade. So some positive news for them. As I say, shares are higher, but not hugely, no huge movements on this news, but good news for the banking sector.
Okay, so that with the Bank of England's verdicts then on the banking industry in the UK, Campari is our last stock, and that is rising today because of strong growth prospects in the US. Yeah, so Barclays has raised their recommendation, so it's all on the back of this. They've also increased their price target for Campari. They're saying that Campari is, well balanced to benefit from trends including modernisation, more purchasing of kind of premium products, convenient consumption, that kind of thing. And they're going to really outperform, they think, in the US spirit sector. They noted particularly Aperol, which is one of Campari's products. As to the positive news for Campari, they recently, in October, they had their third quarter's results. They beat estimates. They've also recently outlined a new strategy. That was in November. And now, if you look at their analyst ratings, now with Barclays change, there's 9 ratings for a buy and 12 for a hold, so slowly creeping up into the buys. So rising on that news this morning, adding to gains recently in the past few weeks.
The Stock Movers Report from Bloomberg Radio. Check back with us throughout the day for the latest roundup of companies making news on Wall Street. And for the latest market-moving headlines, listen to Bloomberg Radio live. Catch us on YouTube, Bloomberg.com, and on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app.